What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And with me this week is the amazing Mike Channell.
Uh-oh, interesting people. Are you sure you got the right guy?
I'm sure I did. We properly vetted the interesting. Nothing
Fair
else,
enough,
though.
Fair enough.
Nothing
of
else.
interest, certainly of interest, given that Egbert is on the way.
Well, actually, I think we're pre-recording this. We're in the past, folks. So yeah, I think when people are seeing this, Egbert is out. It is happening.
It's out now.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
They're living in the better
definitely
future.
Of interest.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good, man. Yeah, all good here. Busy. We're doing sort of live shows and things. At the weekend, this will all be going out, and we've got various more coming up in the UK. We'd love to do some more in the States, actually.
Oh,
obviously, it's been tricky the last few years, but things are opening up again, and travel is getting a lot easier and things like that. So it's definitely our goal to get out and do some D&D in front of our wonderful US fans as well. We love them very much.
heck yeah. I saw the video on the Outside Xbox Twitter of showing off the live show and like scenes from previous ones and whatnot. That looks so dang cool.
It's amazing and really nerve-wracking because obviously the thing about D&D is you have no idea what's going to happen until you get up there. So it's doing a live improv show, basically.
Yeah.
Which is, to a degree, I get a kind of like, not stage fright, but a kind of like slight nervous energy before we go out on stage. But the thing about it is that you also know that you can't prepare, really. You've just got to go out there and hope to be funny. And but you know, fortunately, I'm in a crew of 5 other people, all of whom are also trying to be funny. So between the sort of 6 of us on stage, we tend to get there.
Our powers combine.
Exactly, like
funny.
Voltron. Yeah, we climb on top of each other like Voltron, and people laugh at us, and it's wonderful.
That's fantastic. Well, I want to wind things back a little bit because I like starting the show off with the same question each week, and I feel like this may be a familiar one with past interviews with Ellen and Luke, but still, I want to ask it. How did you get into D&D?
Well, I think it is exactly the same story. Although, to be fair, I wasn't actually around when we filmed our very first D&D adventure. So the Spicy Rat Caper is the first Oxventure, and I was busy racing motor cars at the time, which is a thing I have been known to do. And so I wasn't available for that first shoot. So actually, Eggbert comes in the second episode, which is called A Spot of Bother.
Oh, okay.
And it's I was wondering about how this stuff was going to be integrated and things like that. And actually, what we ended up doing was just everyone's having a drink in a tavern, and Eggbert hears people talking about adventuring and sort of invites himself over and has stuck around ever since. But
I would be lying if I said I hadn't made real life friends like that.
That's the way to do it. It's absolutely the way to do it. And actually, I think as an aside, I think it's sort of slightly easier in the States to do that sort of thing. My experience of going sort of to bars and things in the US is that people are much more friendly and much more prepared to talk. In Britain, we're sort of all like trying to avoid eye contact and worrying about like the idea that someone might come over and speak to us and expect something to happen. So yeah, actually in the States, you can kind of walk up to a bar and just start chatting to strangers, and it's lovely.
The bar that I frequent recently, my friends, I've been playing Magic there, and people and like we're in the back, we're doing the proper nerd thing, we're in the back away from everyone playing our nerd game while drinking.
Cloaks up.
But like people will just come by and they're like, "What's this? Tell me about all of this." I'm like, "I don't know you."
They're already sitting down and they've got their deck out and they're ready to go. Sorry,
I mean, if they brought their deck, I'd be like, "All right, let's go."
Yeah. But yeah, so that's sort of what Egbert did. He channeled his USA sensibility and just kind of rocked up and said hi. But yeah, on a sort of personal level, obviously, I think it's a similar sort of story insofar as I was aware of aware of D&D, aware that I would probably enjoy it. But I think a lot of people are in the same position I was, which was that I think I was just like overly daunted by the rules and the volume of rules. But actually, what I would say to anyone who is, has maybe been playing Idle Champions, but is, has never made the leap over to sort of the tabletop game, is that actually, with a good GM or DM, that you don't need to worry too much about the rules because they'll help you out, and particularly if you're with other experienced players, you'll be helped along with that stuff, and then beyond that, it's just about sort of storytelling and improvisation and having fun and putting in as much as you want to put in. In any good party, you can kind of, if you want to hold back and kind of think things through, you can do that. And if you want to dive straight in and do something extremely silly, like I tend to do, that's also fine, according to me. Maybe not to my party who I play with.
It is my favorite way to play.
Yeah, of course. Egbert is a do first, ask questions later. I think probably would be his philosophy.
Well, so speaking of Egbert, how did you make the character? What went into the thought behind him?
I thought Dragonborn sounded cool. Cool. I actually I wasn't sort of super aware of what a Dragonborn really was. I just thought it sounded badass. And Johnny and I sort of worked through the character. Because I was arriving late, so we had a kind of full party, and I was quite happy to just sort of fill a gap, if that makes sense. And obviously we didn't have a paladin in the party, and we didn't have a Dragonborn, and both those things sounded great. And so we had a bit of a play around with that and came up with a character sheet and stuff. And then I got super into just like the backstory and the fiction. And the thing about Egbert is he's had like a really like strong motivation throughout, like from the very beginning. Like he is searching for atonement. Like that's his thing. He's like, he did something terrible. He got kicked out of his paladin order. And he is searching for, atonement, absolution, a way to sort of redeem himself, basically. And the thing about that is, it's an interesting position to be in, because I know what he did, but it's information that is it's tricky, because I'm not a showrunner for Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or anything. So like, it's really tricky to know how much information to drip feed, and also it's a precious thing to resolve, right? A lot of people are like, they want to know what Eggbert did, and maybe the two things are connected to, maybe when we find out what he did, that might also be his opportunity to sort of redeem himself. And I'm very careful about like us revealing that, because I don't want it to be revealed until the time is right. But also like, I know that people need something. They need, you can't just go on for how many years without revealing anything. So you've had little bits where...
That's when you get into the lost territory.
Exactly, yeah. You just never resolve anything, and it's just people lose interest, basically. So what I would say is, we've had little bits of hints of Egbert's backstory, and I think one of the things Johnny's great at is really trying to make sure every character gets their moment in the sun, their own sort of side quest or something that is meaningful to them as part of Oxventure. So we visited Mistmire, which is the sort of citadel where Egbert has come from, or been kicked out of, at least, and now he's a sort of wandering paladin with his own order, which I'm sure get into a bit later on. But I think we've got a new season of Oxventure starting fairly soon, and I do think there are going to be opportunities for new information about Egbert's situation to come out. So if people are waiting for that sort of thing, I think they're definitely going to want to watch the next season, because I think there's again, we don't plan this stuff too closely, but we have an idea of what kind of themes we'd like to touch on over the course of an arc. And I think Egbert's stuff will be intertwined with that. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
So this is a question that I have, just like kind of production side of it, because I do think that like some people do have this conception that like playing a stream game is just the same as playing, at your home game and whatnot. I'm assuming Johnny knows what this the thing that Eggbert did is. Does the rest of the players know?
No.
Okay.
They don't know. That was genuinely something that was, back at the backstory stuff was kind of back and forth with Johnny in the very early days. And we've still got it, we know what it is, and it may be finessed slightly or slightly tweaked, but fundamentally it's this sort of that sort of few paragraphs I wrote, before that very first session is Eggbert, and has remained Eggbert,
that's fantastic,
since the beginning, which is kind of wild. And then in terms of comparisons with a sort of at-home game, I think probably with an at-home game, you kind of roll in and your sort of arc is your journey is ongoing, and the key points where there would be a sort of logical break would maybe be after a big battle, or heaven forbid after a character dies or something, right? Or a total party wipe. Which might happen as well. But I think with us, like our goal at the moment, at least, and we'll see how that goes, is to have a kind of an arc, basically. So there's an objective. We did a lot of when the pandemic rolled around, and we had to very quickly pivot to sort of streaming and at home stuff and not in person things, which I think we did really, really well. Like I feel like that was a real.
How much had you guys done before that happened? I realized I've never actually thought about this before. Like how many did you do games in person often?
Yeah. So we've been. So I think Oxventure kicked off in like 2018.
Okay.
So we'd had a couple of years of doing it, but we weren't like it wasn't like weekly. But then when the pandemic rolled around, we were like, well, we're all at home. And, we can just get into our costumes at home. We don't have to, haul them over somewhere and film and all this stuff. Let's just do more regular Oxventures. And we did, and we streamed Oxventure, I think. Was it weekly? It was either weekly or fortnightly, right?
Oh, wow.
During the pandemic for ages and ages and ages. We did tons of Oxventure. And it was great because it was a real exploration of it as a format. And I think it gave people something really nice to enjoy while there was nothing else to do. But I think the problem with that was there was no real structure to it, because we were just like next adventure, like all this stuff. So after that, we decided to run what we called the Apocalypse Saga, which was the idea that we would have this big sort of threat that needed to be dealt with, and we wouldn't know the particulars of how that would be dealt with and who was responsible and things like that. But we knew that we'd have 10 to 12 episodes. And at the end of it, it would be like a self-contained arc that had a beginning and an end, and hopefully a good middle. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we're building up for, and it will be starting very soon. I think we've got a sort of prologue episode to kind of warm things up, and then we'll be launching into an arc that should be really, really exciting. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fun.
I like that flow. Like you're changing things up. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Apocalypse stuff was really fun as well, because we really wanted to change the way Oxventure looked. Again, we kind of we'd done all the streaming, and I think done a good job of it and adapted well. But like when it came to the end point of that, we were like, well, we want to make it look a bit nicer and a bit more interesting. So we did the kind of the now standard Oxventure intro thing, where it's kind of it's like a really, really low budget version of the Game of Thrones intro, where it's flying over the map and stuff like that. But like Jane built the map, and I did the animation of I did the After Effects animation of flying over. So we're like hands on with this stuff, but it was like a real like group effort to try and get Oxventure like looking and sounding like awesome, basically.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it was that was kind of a fun project as well. So yeah, there's lots of exciting stuff with Oxventure, I think, coming up in the future. And yeah,
well, I know there's a lot of fans in the Isle Champions community. Like even before y'all got your characters in here, there is a lot of them out there.
I'm so excited for hopefully more people to stumble across it as well, because I think we offer an alternative to a lot of other groups. I think the closest group I think in terms of ethos to us is maybe Dimension 20. I love what those folks do.
Yeah,
really some really talented role players and performers over there. And we're trying to approach things not too seriously. We are. I think Andy's made the comparison. Like if Critical Role is like Lord of the Rings, we're like Discworld. We're kind of like slightly silly. Knockabout, having fun. Like obviously there are moments of I guess touching moments or nerve-wracking moments and things like that. But like fundamentally, we're here to have a good time and hopefully make some people laugh and amuse ourselves as well as we go.
That's important.
So, yeah, I think it is. And I think it's part of the reason we've thoroughly enjoyed, diving into D&D is we're all, into that kind of improv-y sort of storytelling, narrative stuff, and obviously the live shows, because we're all massive show-offs. So Yeah,
Well, I do think that that's something that really comes through in all y'all's games, is that like you all do seem like you are all storytellers and want to tell a story together, and I think that really comes off in the games. So
it's really it's like it's actually one of the things I really really adore about it is like so again we were talking about this new sort of season and what it might entail and things, and then we had a sort of generalized meeting about it, and it wasn't like a kind of here's what's going to happen, you know, blah, blah blah, but it was like, oh, we could look at this, and then like immediately after that I was talking to Johnny and saying, hey, do you remember we talked about this, you know, when we originally spec'd out this part of Egbert's story? Like, what if we made it this and then it flowed into the story? And it's like all this stuff that was kind of, and like this story just was like pouring out of my head. And that's like, that's really cool because like, I've never GM'd before. I think that the bit of GMing I would really enjoy is the creating the story and creating the worlds and kind of visualizing the sort of environments and things like that. And I think my knowledge of sort of rules is, or at least my memory for rules is bad. So that's the bit I'd really struggle with. But I think the storytelling I'd really enjoy.
I have gone on record saying that I don't think you need a full encyclopedic knowledge of the rules to DM.
You need D&D Beyond, basically, and fast typing fingers.
It's just like, you're grappled. What does that mean? Let me move my mouse cursor.
Grappling is the one I think even Johnny is like, I'm going to need to remind myself how to grapple.
I think that happens at least once every one of my games where I'm just like, and this creature has stunned you, and they're like, what does that mean? I went, you would ask that. I think I definitely need one of those DM screens with like a sort of cheat sheet on it. Like, don't forget to ask them to do a wisdom perception check, basically. A little wisdom perception check egg timer to remind make people look around every so often. I had a DM screen at one point where it was one of them where I was really getting into like, tying the character stories and everything into it, and I had post-it notes everywhere, and just occasionally there were gaps for the rules that I needed. It's like, okay, no, you're good. So you talked a bit about Egbert's backstory, and how much went into that. How has Egbert Stark been throughout the time with Oxventure?
Fun, I think fun, and mostly fun driven by Johnny, really, to be honest, because their ability to sort of come up with novel ideas and things for Egbert. So there was one brilliant episode where it was a series of sort of paladin trials, and it was have you ever seen that film First Night? You ever seen that film First Night? Super old.
Yeah, I think I have. That rings a bell.
And there's this weird bit where they're just doing this sort of weird medieval obstacle course thing. In the middle of a castle.
Yes.
And they're dodging like swinging. And it was a bit like that, basically. That's what it reminded me of. Not a reference many people would remember, but yeah,
I saw that like Sci-Fi Channel as a kid.
Probably. That's exactly the sort of level it was operating at. So it's those kind of inventive ideas and stuff, and then you bounce off each other, don't you? And but it's fun to have a little things to play with where you're kind of you have insider knowledge, and it happens every so often when there's something important for a character that has to happen. So I had a kid in 2020, and we knew that I wasn't going to be available for Oxventurers for a certain period of time. And so I conspired with Johnny that Eggbert would be like kidnapped, and I was the only one who knew it was going to happen. But for everyone else, it was like a huge like reveal when Eggbert was like grabbed and hauled through a portal or whatever it was. But yeah, so it's fun to have those little bits of insider knowledge. And
that's fantastic.
I'm getting excited about the next season because I do have at least a little bit of insider knowledge that the rest of the crew has no idea about.
Oh.
Unless they watch this, in which case they'll be, taking me around the back and, pumping me for information, basically.
So, so like, you talked earlier about a new oath for Eggbert. What is going on there with that?
In terms of Egbert's oath, so he is Oath of the Ancients, actually, in terms of actual sort of paladin oaths, and that's kind of interesting because I kind of picked it because it was the one that spoke to me the most, but actually I don't think it's become as key a part of a key part of Egbert's sort of personality and spec and motivation as maybe I expected. But what is the idea that he worships a new deity, right? He's sort of pledged. So he was in this order of the Dragon Door, which is like a sort of the Golden Dragon in French, and they're very austere and sort of very respected, long-standing paladin order, been around for thousands of years. And when Egbert got kicked out, he's like, well, I'm not allowed to, I'm not allowed to be part of this paladin order. I've been kicked out of that. So he's like, well, I better go down the list of deities and find like one that's free. Book. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so basically he found La Vache Mauve, which is French for the purple cow. And that's his deity. He's like, well, no one else is. There's no a paladin order assigned to this. So I guess this is a free one. So he's like pledged his allegiance to this deity, and he's going out, he's spreading the good word, he's handing out pamphlets, and trying to get people to support La Vache Mauve. And he sees her every so often in the sky. Whether anyone else does or not, that's up for debate. But yeah, so it's fun. It's the idea that he's out on his own, and his resourcefulness and industriousness, has caused him to find a new deity to sort of worship, basically.
I genuinely love that because in long story, but in my home game, they have a companion that is a cow that is actually a like baby god.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, that's like La Vache Mauve Origins, isn't it?
Like they made a joke out of it that like at the end of one campaign when after they got it, they like started a farm and created the best cheese in all of the Forgotten Realms from this cow.
God-like cheese, yeah.
It's holy cheese.
It only occurred to me after the fact that obviously cows are like worshipped creatures in many religions,
but not all are
in
purple.
India. Yeah, well, not purple, but yeah, obviously it was never a sort of it was never designed to be any kind of commentary on that at all. And I hope it hasn't upset anyone. But I'll tell you what the inspiration for La Vache Mauve is. One of my favorite films growing up was Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and the bit where God comes out of the clouds like that. Yep. That's the idea for what it looks like.
It's just a giant purple cow.
Yeah, purple cow head, exactly, yeah.
Oh, well, you're doing great down there.
Exactly. Keep up the good work. So that was the sort of, I guess, the mood board for the Vache Mauve.
The mood board.
Yeah, the mood board. Exactly. So yeah, that's sort of that's been a kind of motivating factor for Egbert as well. La Vache Mauve has shown up from time to time. Mm-hmm. You may find she shows up more frequently in Idle Champions.
Could be. Great to being all quiet, but they already know. But
they've already rinsed it. They know entirely. They know all of the abilities and all of the things. But yeah. I'm just for people who haven't fired it up in a day or so. I'm just trying to breadcrumb them.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You always got to do that.
Of course.
Well, the other things that they will probably have seen by now is the equipment, but I always love going into the kind of like the little backstories to these pieces of items and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk to you about that. Well, but I want to let you pick what item do you want to talk about that Egbert's with?
My favorites are the steeds, right? The fine steed items.
That is a very strange collection of animals.
Well, do you want to know? There's a reason why it's a strange collection of animals, and that is because they all have to have Bert at the end of their name. So the first one is Pigbert, right?
Yep.
Egbert's steed, Pigbert, and then it's Dogbert.
Checks out.
And then the final one is Elkbert, right? So I'm limiting myself when I play D&D in the variety of steeds that I'm able to summon. And I'm sure there are more useful steeds out there, but these are the ones that you can quite easily put Bert on the end of because it amuses me. So that's why they
turn your steeds into Digimon.
Yeah. Yes. And
that's fantastic.
Would do it again.
Yes. Okay, actually, here we go. I got a good question for you. What would be the next animal that you like? The pie in the sky dream. What would be the next animal Bert that you got?
I feel like, I mean, this is going to be of even more limited use unless it's a really big one, but I feel like there's definitely room for a Frogbert, obviously.
That sounds like a fun sidekick.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
just on your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's
Why
just
not?
like I can't do the fire breath yet, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, it would be a supernaturally intelligent frog, but still probably of limited use. So, plus, I've got the seal, so I've already got a dual wielding.
Again, pulling in the Digimon thing. You're just
exactly, yeah. It's really fun that they're like items in the game now, and I thought that was a key part of Egbert's whole deal.
I'm just excited that at some point someone's going to open a chest and get a purple card that says Elgbert on it, and they're going to be like, yeah!
Get that elk! Yeah. Those are my favorite.
That's fantastic. Egbert also has got a shield. The last one looks kind of like the Dark Souls 2 mirror shield.
It is very much a mirrored shield.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So it's a I can't even remember where Egbert picked it up, but his current shield is this sort of mirrored thing, and I'm just waiting for a kind of Medusa style scenario where I can bust it out and reflect the monster's reflection at it. But it hasn't happened yet. What has happened is I've tobogganed down a mountain on the shield. I've put a bomb underneath the shield and exploded myself over some castle walls. What else?
That sounds like a legitimate strategy to me.
Yeah, I've done lots of stupid stuff with the shield. To the constant frustration of my party, I very much see the character sheet as guidelines, but I never really want to do the same thing in combat twice. So once I've exhausted, barring the breath weapon, which is extremely useful, the 15-foot cone of flame.
Yeah.
Actually, quite often I'll choose a more certainly off the character sheet inventive way to get involved in combat if I can.
I think that's awesome.
Actually, what's tricky? What's tricky? Not to get too into the sort of the nitty gritty of playing, but as a paladin, you're trying to maintain a certain distance and be devout and all that kind of stuff. And often you get into combat in D&D. So how does Egbert approach combat? And it doesn't always work, but quite often I'm trying to keep him I'm trying to have him behave somewhat non-lethally and try and just try and keep some of that fiction within the combat turns as well, because it's a lot easier to play to the fiction when you're making decisions in conversation or about where to go next and what to do. But in combat, it can be a lot trickier to play true to your character, and that's something I'm super big on with role playing. Is two things really. I think characters should have flaws. I think much as it's tempting to make your character an unstoppable badass. I think it's much more fun to play a character who has flaws and issues that you need to play around. It keeps you interested in stuff. I remember there was an officially licensed Game of Thrones video game years ago.
I remember that thing.
Not the Telltale one, but the one that came.
Yeah. The weird RPG one.
Yeah. Based on the books, right? And but with a couple of very, very small bit part actors from the show, which is very strange. One thing that really stuck with me about that was it had a character creator, and you could build your character up. But every perk you chose had a negative consequence. So you could be like, well, I'm going to choose the perk that turns me into an amazing swordsman, but also my swordsman's going to have gout. And it's and you're like, okay, I've got to balance these two things out, right? So that really stuck with me. And when I try and create role-playing characters, I try and create them with flaws. The second thing is that I really try and play true to the character, even if it is against the interests of the group and the character. I think this is a cause of frustration again for my party probably sometimes, but I really like the idea of, I know this is going to be bad, but this is what my character would do.
Oh, you're one of the, it's what my character would do, guys.
Yeah, and so I've just got to do it. And I really believe, I believe strongly in it as a storytelling tool because it makes the character ring true, but also I think I don't want our games to just become like puzzle solving and it I like the idea of a bit of dramatic tension in there and unforeseen obstacles that not even the GM has seen. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a surprise for them as well when I do something totally stupid because it's what Egbert would do. So he's got my -1 wisdom added to all of his wisdom rolls. So nothing he does is out of character. No stupid thing he does is out of character.
I would be lying if I said that I've never wasted a turn on something that is just completely character driven for the moment. It is 100% happened.
It's fun. It keeps me entertained at least. It probably slows us down. I think there's a recent one we recorded where I did something in character that I think maybe turned a character who would have been friendly towards us into a boss basically. So
oh no.
So that's probably my finest work so far, Trevor. As one of those, it's what my character would do. But I'm always working on improving. I feel like you never achieve perfection, do you? So I'm sure I'll do something even more ridiculous soon.
But I mean, I'm sure that is why people show up to those streams and shows and whatnot, is for that ridiculousness.
I hope so. Yeah, we have a lot of fun.
So what are the other things on this character sheet? That there is a very interesting dragon bomb on here. And you said something earlier about jumping over a wall with your shield and a bomb. What's going on there?
So Egbert has an interest in explosives as a sort of, I mean, again, going back to the sort of original backstory, which we've not really kind of delved into, but I think the idea was the idea of a kind of almost, it's going to sound completely inhumane to explode things, but the idea of like an instant sort of smiting in holy light, and things are destroyed by it, right? As a kind of like, rather than clobbering someone over the head with a mace until their head caves in, it's the idea of like a very clean, well, not clean, obviously. Everything gets spread everywhere, but at least quick death for these things. So that was the sort of like paladin logic. But I just like things going boom, basically, and a lot of things go boom when Egbert's around. And so yeah, obviously the bombs had to be the kind of the chief weapon item in the game, and obviously he has his mace for the kind of clunking, but in terms of like offensive,
a very cool looking mace too. Yeah,
well, there's a story behind that as well, which I'm sure we'll get into as well. But yeah, the explosives, and then obviously again, having said that, Monty Python the Holy Grail was my kind of inspiration. I like the idea of his ultimate bomb being like the holy hand grenade.
A holy hand grenade.
So it's like a dragonborn version of a kind of holy hand grenade for the final item.
I don't know if you've seen it. There's a company, I cannot remember their name right now, but they recently did cleric dice. But one of the dice that they did on the side was holy hand grenade dice.
Amazing. Yeah.
So it's just like little. It's just got the little cross at the top. You just,
exactly.
There you go.
I bet it rolls real bad.
Oh, I'm sure it does. I have them and have not rolled them yet, but they look cool.
So that was the inspiration for that, and I guess anytime I can get a Monty Python the Holy Grail reference in there, I'll do it.
There you go. So what is up with that cool mace?
So Egbert started off with a kind of more standard kind of like Morning Star, I guess they call it, the one with the kind of the ball with the spikes, the spiky ball.
The spiky ball, yes.
Yeah, the technical term for it. And then as he develops through, and gets the next item, it's a sort of more ornate mace. But the final mace is again an item that Johnny came up with brilliantly, which is a mace that every time I hit someone with it, I have to roll a d6, and if it rolls a 6, this cursed mace will turn whatever I hit someone with, the person I hit it with, will turn them into just a random animal, like a random creature from the compendium, from the monster manual, or whatever. Which is how I ended up with a pet seal.
Oh, okay.
Right? So the pet seal is the result, or he's actually a museum curator who I clonked on the I don't know if it was even on the head. It was I basically hit him with his mace until he turned into a seal. And yeah, so that was. I mean, that
does he still get to curate much as a seal?
He curates a habit for eating Scotch eggs. Do you know what Scotch egg is?
I feel like I did at one point. I don't remember what it is anymore. What is a Scotch egg?
It's like an egg with ham around it and then breadcrumbs. And I think it's a boiled egg, maybe? I don't know. It's a very, very strange English delicacy, I think is probably the wrong word, because it makes it sound like it tastes delicate. No, it's a weird piece of English British junk food that I don't think anyone actually eats.
I mean, I'm down. There's a restaurant around here that does just purely British food. I'll see if they have them.
they may do, and you may regret your decision to go there. I've never eaten a Scotch egg, but I thought it was
But it's an item for Egberts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what the seal likes to eat. Definitely.
That's fantastic. And then lastly, we've got panfoots for your divine god.
Indeed, yeah, just spreading the good word about Lavash Mauve, trying to get some support and things, and yeah, they're just increasing amounts of literature about the Paladin Order. I do
like how
some literature.
I do like how they start off looking hand drawn, and then they just get holier and holier.
Yeah, exactly. It starts with crayons, and then ends up with the Caxton printing press or whatever the equivalent is in the world of Geth. So
yeah. So I want to switch gears here for a moment because I talked with Ellen and Luke about the Blades in the Dark game that you all do. How is that going for you?
Yeah, good. I really enjoy Blades just as a more experienced role player, because I think with Egbert, I was very, very new to it, and I think there's probably a lot more. You know how they say when like someone's first novel is always like autobiographical. I think there's a lot of me in Egbert, right? And that is just by necessity of we were going to be recording hours and hours and hours of this stuff, and it's a lot more comfortable to just play the way you would play, right? And excuse me. And I think I think it reflects kind of the way I play video games as well. So the kind of explosions thing was a sort of riff on that. With Blades, I wanted to try and come up with a character who was different and was more of a character and would require more me inhabiting a role, if that makes sense, and challenge my sort of improv abilities and things like that. And so I came up with Barnaby, who's a very rich, posh idiot who is doing crimes because he thinks it'll be a laugh. He doesn't need the money. He's not really interested in what anyone else wants to do. He's just there to have a good time and amuse himself, basically. So that was really, really fun. And he did sort of become a bit of a parody of the sort of the ruling political class in this country at the moment. And so yeah, in a way, he was a way for me to get some of my frustrations out with the current regime. So yeah, he's a really fun character to play. But I really I think even you can even see it. We did a brilliant video in collaboration with Wizards of the Coast around Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Yeah, which introduced a load of new archetypes and things like that. And what we pitched them, what they were really excited to do with us was this idea of all right, if we were going to create new D&D characters, what would they be? And it was really fun digging into the, not least because Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is a really exciting topic.
Oh yeah,
full of fun stuff. But it was really fun to go back to that kind of character creation thing that I hadn't. The last time I created a D&D character was before I'd ever played D&D, right?
Yeah.
So now, and Egbert has, obviously been enduring and is beloved, thankfully. But I think, when I next come to, if anything were to happen to Egbert, and it would 100% be his own fault, I would be sad, obviously, but I think I would relish the opportunity to either create a new character or or one of the ones I made for the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything video, because I really enjoyed making those folks as well. So so yeah, it's interesting. It's been interesting with Blades in the Dark to try and sort of inhabit a character. And what I'd really like to do next time I create a D&D character is to really come up with not just this is what they are and this is what they do, but a kind of, again, going back into those kind of like character flaws things, and like give them a kind of slightly interesting twist on their motivation, basically. So yeah, that was what Blades has taught me, and it's it's a fun system, and
it is really cool.
And so yeah, and I love Barnaby. I think I've really enjoyed playing him, and people seem to have really responded to him. So yeah.
Have you ever tried building Barnaby in D&D?
No, but you can see some of the. It's in one of my Tasha's Cauldron of Everything characters, and I forget the name of the character. But the concept was that he was what's known in the realm as an affluencer, who is someone who is very famous for being very rich. And the idea was that he was like a parody of like influencer culture, and he had a guy who he had I think he had like I can't even remember if I went this badly on the puns, but it was something like a guy, an elf who follows him around painting elfies, which are like, like portraits, right? So like the whole point of this guy was like a parody of like influencer culture, and like anything I can parody and like anything where there are tropes that I can kind of insert into a fantasy setting or insert into a steampunk setting or whatever. I think it's fun, it's fun as a bit of like commentary and a bit of, just everyone immediately knows the archetype and can kind of bounce off it. So yeah, I'll have to look that character up again and see. But there was a sort of spec in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, like a new type of character. I can't even remember which one it was, but that it just seemed perfectly suited for this sort of character, basically. So yeah,
it's fantastic.
It's just fun. Again, it comes back to just a love of storytelling, and humans have been storytelling since the dawn of time, and it's just really fun. And I think that's the joy of D&D. To boil it down, I'm not going to be the first person who's ever said this, but the joy of D&D is it's collaborative storytelling.
Yes,
it's storytelling, but with some rules. So you can't just be like, and then I fly off to the moon and have a dance party on the moon, because there are rules, but the rules are actually made for better stories, because there are just a series of quite loose restrictions. You've still got a load of freedom, but they're just things to keep you on a path and with forward momentum. So yeah, I think it's really cool. It's a really cool system. I very glad to have D&D in my life.
Heck yeah, I love that. Well, so when we talk about Outside Xbox for a bit,
sure.
For people who may be watching this who don't know, what is Outside Xbox?
So Outside Xbox, in spite of the fact that it does have D&D videos on it, is a video gaming channel. These things called video games. They're rather popular.
What?
Yeah, I know. And
I gotta look into these.
It's sort of like a tabletop role-playing game, except that you can't do as much stuff. There are much more strict rules about what you can and can't do. And you can't just say, I kill this baddie, and then roll really well and it happens. But anyway... yeah, yeah, I probably would have completed Skyrim if that were the case. But anyway, yeah, so we've been making video game videos for, as of last month, 10 years.
Wow! Congratulations, that's so
Thank
cool.
You, yeah, so we're still here. We're survivors. We're 10 years not out, and yeah, it's really fun. So a lot of what we do is kind of entertainment based around video games, and we have a lot of knowledge of useless video game trivia, and what we do is turn those into like these list features about weird parts of games, and then we try and make jokes about them, and people seem to watch it, so
my wife has been watching y'all's videos for I think almost that 10 years.
Oh, amazing.
So it's been working.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, we really wanted to obviously it would appeal to gamers and stuff, but we really want to make it a kind of like generalized entertainment thing. So even if you don't consider yourself like a hardcore gamer, like you'll still find something to laugh about or something interesting. And it's a really, I think, our goal is somewhat to educate, but our goal first and foremost is just to entertain, basically. So that's always the priority. These list features are a way of us poking fun at games which are often ridiculous. You know, until you start digging into it and making jokes about things, you don't realize how silly video games are.
They're pretty silly.
They're pretty silly.
They're pretty dang silly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
So, but before you were with Outside Xbox, so you worked at Eurogamer and the official Xbox magazine.
So I was a writer predominantly on OXM at the time. I've done bits and bobs for Eurogamer but that was more like a sort of early years of Outside Xbox because we have a really close relationship with Eurogamer. But yeah, so I was in magazines, video game magazines, basically the official Xbox magazine here in the UK. Was there for sort of 4-ish years, and before that I worked on a PC magazine and things like that. But yeah, it was a sort of around 2012 when we started Outside Xbox. I think a lot of love to those people who are still making video game magazines right now, but there was a real sense of a kind of contraction, and as YouTube was going up like this, magazines were kind of going down like that, and so we were aware when we set up Outside Xbox that, or at least I was aware that magazines weren't going to last forever. And much as I was having a great time and working with a great team and really proud of the stuff we produced, it was time to move on. And at the time we started a YouTube channel, we were like, it was 2012 when there were all these like teenagers in their bedrooms with millions of subscribers, and we were like, oh, we've left it too late. All the good YouTube viewers have gone.
The well's gone dry.
and here we are 10 years later thinking, wow, we're pretty glad we started that YouTube channel because we wouldn't want to try and start one now. It's yeah, but I mean, it's exploded, hasn't it? Really, I mean, I felt like YouTube was a big deal when we started, but it's huge now. People with
I think I watch more YouTube than TV.
Yeah, it's just I mean, I don't watch live TV anymore at all. Like I'll watch the odd on-demand thing, House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, and Lord of the Rings as well.
Oh yeah, so good.
A little bit of the new series, But like by and large, most of my entertainment's on YouTube, and I think particularly if you, it's weird. YouTube is seen as quite a thing for kind of like really young people. But I think even if you have a young family and you don't have a lot of time on your hands, you can't sit down and watch like a 45-minute, hour-long TV show. YouTube will be able to serve you, probably via its crazy algorithms, a 12-minute video that is right up your street. And if all you have is 12 minutes to watch a video while you're in the middle of doing a load of other, tedious domestic stuff, then it will entertain you for 12 minutes. But then, of course, if you want to watch 2 hours or so of quality D&D.
If you want to one day watch 4 hours of a video essay about Twin Peaks.
Well, exactly. People should probably watch the Oxventurers instead of that. Or Idle Insights, right? But yeah, so I think YouTube just it's that kind of bite-sized content at your fingertips at all time on your phone, constantly. So it's always there, and I just don't, other than big sporting events and then the odd like on-demand event television stuff, like I just don't watch live TV anymore. And,
well,
one of those things I think I would mourn if it went away entirely, but equally, like I can't complain too much because I'm not watching it.
It's true. Well, I've got one last question for you before we get out of here. Sure. But it is kind of a big one because, as you're just saying, you got 10 years of Outside Xbox.
Are you going to ask me to marry you?
I know. You know what? Let's do it. No,
I can't tell if you're down on one knee because we're on a Zoom call. But,
it's true. It's true. I know. I just have. No, I'm not.
Sorry, I feel like I've stolen your thunder for your big important question.
It's not that big important, but it is kind of a wide scope. It was just, what's your favorite video that you've done on Outside Xbox?
Oh boy. So we did, and this is kind of probably an insight into why the connection with role playing. But so we play a lot of a game called Hitman, right? Which is a
oh god, yeah,
glorious sandbox.
By the way, this is literally the first video I ever saw of you all.
Really?
I walked into the room when my wife was watching this. I'm like, what is this? She's like, oh, it's this channel that I love, and they're playing Hitman. I'm like, okay, I'll sit down and watch this.
Yeah, amazing. Well, perfect. So we played a lot of Hitman and that first season, and what's great about it is it's really easy to express yourself and your different play styles, right? So when I was talking about Egbert being a kind of into the explosives and stuff, that is at least partly connected to the way I play Hitman, which is to blow things up and cause chaos and then run out in a hail of bullets. So one of the great things about being a sort of prominent YouTube channel that played Hitman is that when Square Enix, who were the people who published that first season of Hitman, set up a live role-playing version of Hitman.
Oh, that's right.
Right. How to explain this? Basically, we were taken to the YouTube studio in London.
Yeah.
We were taken into a small room which was set up like a little control room. We had a big screen on, and we had a phone, and we had maps of a building. And on the screen was a live-action recreation of a Hitman level with an Agent 47, in front, and the camera work was moving like the game. And we were the kind of Diana, the handler, for Agent 47, and we're trying to complete this mission. And it was amazing because, again, it had the level of flexibility that the game has and the ability to play it different ways. And it was brilliant because it was like inhabiting a character. And that video, I think it did about 1 million views or something. But
I remember that one. That was an incredibly wild video.
Yeah.
I loved that thing.
And I mean, it's not something we would have ever had the budget to put together, but fortunately, the people who made the game did it all for us, and we were players, and it was an immersive, real world experience based on one of our favorite video games. So yeah, I think that's my favorite video we've done, and it was almost entirely not our creative brilliance. It was just a really fun thing to do.
I think that's giving you a disservice to say that you didn't add anything. That you all added a lot to that.
We had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Well, Mike, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and talking to me about Egbert. This is an absolute blast. If people wanted to find you and your work on the interwebs, where could they do so?
So you can find us at youtube.com/OutsideXbox. And also, from probably about now, we are moving Oxventure to its own channel, which will be youtube.com/Oxventure.
Oh,
so
heck yeah.
Head over there. A new home for Oxventure, where you don't have to worry about all those stupid video game videos, and you can just concentrate on the one true brilliant game, D&D. And
Perfect new
also
place to
probably
binge
some
it
other
all.
tabletop stuff. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's something we've been working quite hard on behind the scenes. There's some technical stuff to work out, but we really want Oxventure to thrive and grow on its own YouTube channel. So head over there and subscribe to that. If you're here, then you probably care enough to go and subscribe to that. So head over and do that.
Heck yeah. Go do that right now. But yeah, once again, Mike, thank you so much. This is an absolute blast. You can get Egbert right now live in the game. Just log in and do the event, and you'll get Egbert. Yes, and the mighty cow god.
Yes, exactly. That should hope, yeah.
Yes.
May her benevolent gaze fall upon you.
Well, that's gonna do it for this week's Idle Insights. Thank you so much for watching. Until next week, take care of yourself.